Welcome, my friends. This is Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And we are now looking at Middle-earth, the role-playing game system from Iron Crown Enterprises. And this is Halls of the Elven-king. It is Fortresses of Middle-earth series, and the home of Legolas and Thranduil. I guess at some point, Iron Crown had tried to come up with a different set of series. We had the cities series, and this is the Fortresses of Middle-earth, and there's a number of them. It goes into more detail of a specific location within Middle-earth. So the Halls of the Elven-king are of course in the Mirkwood's books and show up there. And this here would be a little bit more in depth on the particular location and the Halls of the Elven-king and Thranduil's kingdom. So this was printed in 1988. So I would have bought it in 88 when it came out, late or early 89, depending on when it hit the shelves. I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was under $10. I know that much. Which, you know, hey, inflation. The Fortress series says here, Fortress series intended to provide game masters with extremely detailed overviews of individual towers, castles, citadels, and other fortifications of particular note. Right? So we got the background, the Elven King's realm, the Halls of the Elven King, Great March of the Elves, the Nandor, Ophir, which would be Thranduil's father. To understand the nature and character of the Sylvan Elves of Greenwood, we must recall the experiences of Ophir during the First Age. His decisions at critical period affects his actions and judgments as King of Greenwood during during the Second Age as well. To Ophir, the catastrophe in Beleriand was directly attributed to the Noldurian notion that Middle Earth was a land to be shaped and towards their liking. He viewed the High Elves of the West as misusing their deep lore to scar and distort the world's natural beauty by building great cities and vast stone fortresses, or etc., etc. So, Thunder on the Third Age, the rise and fall of Dol Guldur, Legolas, Gollum, and the Fellowship of the Ring, Thranduil's army, which is it in the Battle of Five Armies. It also participated in the Lord of the Rings. It comes in as 4 sections or companies, 4 specialties, right? With additional other brotherhoods. You got the Brotherhood of the Bow, the Brotherhood of the Axe, the Brotherhood of the Spear, and the Brotherhood of the Sword. The strength of the army during the War of the Last Alliance, the army, blah, blah, was nearly 30,000. More than 10,000 warriors served, and it broke them down into divisions, blah, blah, blah. Other brotherhoods, formations. You know, it's one of the things on a personal note, when I've seen Jackson's movies and the uniformity of the Elven armies, I can understand it, but I dispute it a little bit too. But it's just easier for CGI. I get that. So when we look at the Wood-elves army at the Battle of the Five Armies and prior to it, they look identical to the formations used by the Lothlorien, and I imagine other formations elsewhere too. And it just, if you understand the concept of the difference between the Sylvan elves and the Noldor elves, seeing the Noldor elves and the elves of the Goldenwood showing up at Helm's Deep in heavy armor and lockstep, yeah, I can buy it. That's something I understand and agree because it kind of fits. But when the same kind of formations and mindset and armor and equipment show up at the Battle of Five Armies, I start thinking that's lazy because the Woodland Elves realm doesn't, for starters, doesn't have nearly as much access to metals as others would have had. And the idea that they are all uniformly equipped also kind of is a bit disingenuous. And I think that it's always said in the books that the woodland elves are much more nature minded. The fact that they talk about that in Lord of the Rings at the very beginning, we talk about the siege of Barad-dûr, when Thranduil's elves are a lighter force, lighter armor, lighter equipment and of course it makes them bad, foolish. Their leader makes some rash decisions and costs them dearly, including his Thranduil's father losing his own life at that battle or during that campaign. I'm just personal observation. All right, so formations of the military, dress, weapons, equipment, use of animals, the king's halls, the tale. Overview a little picture of it, the layout. And interestingly enough, they actually did moderately well in the books of modeling the kind of the way the flow and natural use and creative artistic nature elvish construction quite thoroughly. There are some distinct differences, of course, between locations, but I just like the idea that they come pretty close to what the beta canon envisioned the place looking like, right? So it's basically a layout of this place. I have used it a number of times in campaigns in Middle Earth as both as a way place. One time we had a campaign of all elves, and they started out from here. And I've also used some of the stuff in other locations to save on time of having to try to hand draw a bunch of new places. So the elves prisoners, adventures, the sorcerer in Thranduil's house, the dragon's eye, the elves prisoners, the Dorwinian agent, other adventures, late third age, mid third age, fourth age, master garrison table. See, I mean, it's a lot of information packed into a small area. A lot of neat stuff here. I've utilized these things in other campaigns too for encountering elves, and this also works in Lothlorien in some aspects because it's a little bit more extensive than the way it's described in the book, but that's okay. All right. So that said, it's still a pretty good, nifty thing. If you can get your hands on a copy of these things, they're well worth having. PDFs, or PDFs. But hey, whatever works, right? Till next time, this is Rick, and you're at the table, and have a good weekend.